Welcome back to Gathering Grounds Gaming, and in today's video we're going to go back and look at some wargaming essentials. So I'm just going to do a little piece just for the table. I was thinking like a church ruin today, so it'll sit quite nicely amongst some of the other terrain that I've built on the table. So first of all, just want to say thanks for coming along and checking out the video, and if you are a member, thank you very much for subscribing. If you're not and you like some of the content, please like and subscribe the video. This will be video number 10, so thanks very much if you sort of stayed with us. If you want to support me, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. Just being here and watching this video is one way. Subscribing, but as I say, if you go into the description below, you'll see the link to my Patreon, and if you can afford a couple of pounds a month just to support the work I do, that'd be amazing. There's also a link to my online store where I have some of the pieces that I've worked on in the past, and I've got some sort of standard pieces like trees, lots of different essentials, and some resin pieces that I've sort of sculpted. If you can do any of that, that'd be amazing, but otherwise just enjoy the video. I'm going to get down onto the pad, I'm going to do a little sketch and we'll get building. For this church ruin. Okay, so I think the first point is just a small piece, probably like 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters, just so I can just drop it in like amongst some trees, some other sort of pieces of terrain, and take up the whole board. I want there to be a platform or second floor. Enjoying having like 2 levels to sort of people to climb up or to fight over, you know, for archers and things like that. And finally, because of the style of the piece, I want there to be like a cloister sort of running down one side with a roof. So I want to make sure that the it's got a nice pitched roof on the church. And I want there to not be a roof on the main building, but I want there to be some timbers to show that where the roof used to be. I think it just adds a nice little bit of style without having to then create a whole roof. And what I'm going to do is I want the back wall to have a nice architectural sort of window, which I will carve out of foam and wood. And I think the platform that I want to have is going to be timber struts. So normally I would do this out of foam, but actually I'm going to do it out of sort of like balsa wood. And there's going to be like one small ruined wall on one side. So the main part of the actual church is open. And there's going to be matching, I want there to be some nice architectural sort of matching windows on the bottom floor and an open door. So the cloister that runs down the side, I want there to be, want it to be sort of some archways. I'm going to show you from the side. So I want it to have 3 sort of archways, nothing too complicated. And I'm going to have little pillars that go down to the ground. And it's going to have a little roof. And the roof's going to be broken away. And it's going to have some shingles on top. So some nice sort of tile shingles. That's the side of the building. So yeah, so that's the main part of the building, and I want the base to only be just slightly bigger than the actual building, so nothing too big, so it can just sort of sit on the table quite nicely. But as I say, it's going to have small with some nice second floor, and it's going to have a nice cloister running down the edge. So I'm going to grab my foam and my Proxon, and what we can do is I'm going to start cutting all the foam, and we can get sculpting. So it's going to be a 15 by 15 base, which I'm going to do out of 3mm MDF, so nothing too heavyweight. I'm going to use 10mm insulation foam for this. It's going to cut it to the sort of general sizes, and I can sculpt as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out where the stonework's going to be before I then cut the windows in. I'm literally just measuring the pitch roof. I want there to be like a little bit that sticks out on one side. So like you see on churches where they have like a little tiny little side roof off the main building. So now I've added some of the basic brickwork in, I'm going to start looking at the windows. So there's going to have two small windows, and I'm going to put them next to each other, and that will create more of an ornate look. And I'll show you some of the detail I'm going to add in afterwards. I'm thinking about making the piece between that separates the windows out of like timber, but I'll show you that as we go. I'm just going to score them in with a pencil, and then I'm going to cut them out with a scalpel. Okay, so there you go. So there's 3 windows there. And then I'm going to start having a look at more of a curved window for the top. So it's going to be slightly larger. It's going to be more like the centerpiece that you normally see at the top of, like, the end of churches where they have that nice bigger window. I think it's just going to be a nice little detail, and it will set the rest of it apart. I'm just going to use just a straight edge to bring that down a little bit to create the actual window sides. I'm going to use the tall thin windows. Again, I'm going to use 2 of them, and that'll create that nice sort of like that nice curve at the top of the window. And again, just going to use a scalpel to cut those out. And just for this, just make sure that you've got a nice sharp scalpel. Otherwise, you can end up sort of tearing the foam, and it gives a really horrible look when you paint it later. Just be careful when you pop these windows out as well, if you're going to do something similar, to make sure that the actual window frame itself, the what's left, doesn't break. And there you go. So you can now see that nice curve that is created at the top. I'm just going to now just finish the edging of it off, because it's going to have like a little make sure that the curve carries on to the other side, so it's nice and the same. You just want to be careful that you don't create a nice window on one side of the frame, and then when you get to the other, it's really, really rough and really untidy. So just make sure it looks good on both sides. Now just use a pencil just to score the rest of it. I'm actually going to cut this center strut out. So I'm going to pop that out. I'm actually going to use some like circular timber just to create a nice pillar in between the window. And I'm going to do this to all of the windows. And it looks a bit weird now, but when I add them in, it's actually got a really quite nice effect at the end. So it looks like little like circular pillars. Now I'm literally just scoring over all of the brickwork, and you'll see all the brickwork now come to life on this piece. Yeah, it's the same brick pattern that I normally do on a lot of my buildings. So if you've seen the videos before, you should know this. There's no template for it. I literally just do it by eye, just to make it a little bit less uniformed. So now I'm going to start to have a look at the side of the building. So this is like the main wall, which will go out into the cloister. I'm going to have just like a big open door in the middle, and I'm going to do similar window style to the other. So I'm going to have 2 windows on each side, which join via a pillar, which I'll add in later. If you haven't seen any of my videos, the templates I'm using are from Shifting Lands. It's a European company. They're really good. It's where I got all my my jigs for my Proxon cutter and stuff like that. So drop me a message if you want to know a bit more detail about those. So there you go. I've cut all the windows out, and just now finishing the brickwork up on the main wall, and that'd be the 2 main walls finished. Just going to finish scoring in the brickwork. Now, once we've done that, we can get to looking at gluing these 2 together before moving on to the next step. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut away the end of this wall to make it ruined. I just think it creates a nice effect, so it doesn't look like a couple of walls just fell down. It sort of ruins it, and I'm just going to do the same on that bit there, so it looks like parts of the actual building sort of fell away at the same time. Now I'm going to use my trusty rock that my daughter found to texture the piece. If you're going to use things like foil and stuff like that, make sure you have 2 or 3 different sizes of foil, just so you can create different patterns, so your texturing doesn't all of a sudden just become the same across the whole piece. And now I'm just going to cut out the struts on these windows as well. like I've done with the other wall, and I'll do the little pillars just like with the other one as well. Okay, so that's the two main walls done and all textured. And these all just sit there together. So what I'm going to use, I'm just using some dowel. I think it's like 5 mil, maybe a bit more, 7 mil, and I'm just going to cut some pillars out. Because it's balsa wood, literally I can just drag my standing knife over it, and it will just roll along, and it will actually just cut it. I can use a saw, but don't have it to hand, so it's just as easy, and you can just break it. And they literally, I'm just going to glue them just where the foam was cut, and there you go. They look like little pillars. When they're all glued in, it looks really good. It's great, creates a really good effect. And there you go. It's the all of them done. And that's the piece there. So, and what I'll do is I'll put a floor in. What I'm going to do is I'm actually measuring a floor in foam, but what I'm actually going to do, I think, is I'm actually going to make it out of timber. I'd say when I was drawing this out, I wasn't decided, but I end up doing it in using just sort of balsa wood. The only thing about using balsa wood is just make sure you've got enough supports. If I was to do this build again, I think I'd put a post in just to give the floor a little bit more stability in the middle. I'm just going to create the little small piece of wall, which I add in. There you go, and then the rest of it, as you can see, is going to be completely open. Now I'm going to start gluing it to the base. I'm going to have the building completely over to one side, so I can then add the cloister in at the front. Make sure that you factor that in if you're going to do this build before gluing it down. The first time I actually went to glue it in the middle of the base, which wouldn't have left me enough space. Can use PVA in that, but actually hot glue is a lot quicker. And there you go, it's all glued to the base. So now I'm going to start building the second floor. I'm going to do this using I think it's 3 mil squared timber. I've never used this before, so it's slightly thicker than like matchsticks. And I liked the look at the end of it, but as I said, I found it a little bit flimsy. So I think if I was going to do it again, I'd probably buy slightly thicker balsa wood. It took me a while to be able to glue this together, but the effect is brilliant. But as I say, the scale is great, but it's just maybe a little bit flimsy. And I'm going to use coffee stirrers, which are basically sort of like balsa wood. And they work really well for this, but just make sure you get enough support for them to be able to glue down. Just to get a nice effect. So what I'm doing is I'm doing one long one, two small ones, one long one, two small ones, to create like more of a floorboard effect, and I'm just snapping them off at the ends to make them look like they've obviously broken. You can PVA them, but again, for speed, I'm just doing a couple of little blobs of hot glue, and then I'm just going to add this piece in just where I've run out of sort of wood to stick them down to. I'm actually going to create a little section, and I'm going to glue another board across them, so it looks like there's a floorboard which has been broken off and laid on top. but I'm actually going to use it just for a bit of stability. So if you look, I'm just doing it diagonally across. I'm just going to leave a little bit at the end just so it can attach to the boards that I've already attached. There you go. And what I'll do is when that's all glued in, I'll add probably another couple of little diagonal boards as well, just to have a bit more stability. So there you go. That will just go over the top. And I'll glue all that in place. And I'm actually going to make a little ladder using the same wood. I don't think I show you in the footage though, but it's just a little ladder, which actually works really well. So there you go. So there's the floor all finished. As you can see, it's a little bit thinner. So now I'm going to start measuring out the roof for the cloister. I'm actually going to have it 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters with like a little pitched roof. I'm going to have one of these at the end, at each end, and then a little support in the middle. Just creating the doing the measurements so I can then create the pitched roof. And I'll just use that one to then mark out the next one. Then I'm just going to do a little curved archway at each end. Nothing too detailed. I think I'm literally just going to add a little recess around all the way around as well. But this is nothing too technical. There you go. So a little center stone, and that will literally sit on there on 2 little pillars, like little legs, and one at each end. And I think I'll do a little support in the middle, which I'll add in after. So now, before I put the cloister in, I'm actually going to add some like tiles. I'm just going to use some cork just to add some like sort of flagstones that the cloister will then sit on. I've made these a little bit rough in terms of their sizing, just because it makes it look more like it was, natural stone, and these look good. These look good for the I would say when they're covered in when they're sort of dry brushed up and with some turfs and that on, they blend in quite nicely. There you go. Let's say some gaps in there because it's meant to be quite an old building, and then I'll start creating the legs. This will be the front of the cloister again with them little matching archways, and they'll also have little legs on as well, and it will create like a little frame for the roof to sit on. Again, make sure you got a nice sharp scalpel, so otherwise it breaks the foam. Glue that on the side. Make sure that the legs are perfectly the same size, otherwise your cloister roof will sort of tip to one side. So you just got to make sure that they're perfectly the right size. Again, just using the hot glue for this because I am going to cover it all over. And you can see the front of the cloister. I've actually done a little I've cut the corner off the front so it's sort of slanted, so then the roof will sit nice and flat when I add it in later. I'm just doing the detail there, and there you go. So that's the cloister roof sort of done. Now I'm just matching up the flagstones. These flagstones, I won't cover the whole floor. I'm going to have some of it so they're sort of broken away. There you go. So I can use some of it. I can have some of it as grass. And now these are the timbers. So I'm just going to cut out just the notch out of the actual foam, and I'm literally just going to hot glue these in and paint them afterwards. But like I said, there's not going to be a roof. I'd thought about it. Let me know in the comments whether you would have put a roof on this. I think it personally, I think it looks better without, but I know there's a few people that probably would put a roof on at least one side. But let me know in the comments. Now that's the roof. Well, basically I've cut this the cloister roof from card, and I'm literally going to use the same card to create some shingles. I don't do lots of shingles normally because it takes a lot of time, but actually for the amount there is here, it's actually quite a nice little effect. Little tip, if you want to make it look old, you can snip away corners from some of the shingles, and actually I actually purposely miss a couple of shingles out on a couple of the rows above, so it looks like maybe the tile over time is sort of fallen out, and it actually creates a nice little effect. A lot of this roof is I'm going to have sort of like leaves and stuff sort of sprinkled over the top, so some of it will be hidden anyway. I've left a couple of tiles overhanging so you can see that looks like the roof has sort of collapsed over time. So I'm just testing out the sizings just to make sure that the miniature can stand in front of the windows. There's the ladder, and I've made the ladder so that a miniature can slot in, so it can be halfway up the ladder. Now I'm just literally using some filler just to blend. So this is filler with brown paint. If you've seen any of my other videos, you would have seen it before. And this is just blending like the MDF base into the actual piece itself, so you're not left with brown MDF base. And I'm also going to use the same filler just to cover a couple of like the joins. Now I'm just going to literally base coat everything in a black, and then I'll base coat the actual groundwork in a brown, and then I'm just going to do just some normal dry brushing techniques from like a black through to a light grey. And this is where all the little wooden pillars and that will blend in. Make sure with the cork that you really get into the gaps, because otherwise you'll just be able to see brown cork at the end. There you go, that's the whole thing. I've actually covered the timber up with some brown ink, and I'm just going to do like just a basic dry brush on those later. So now I'm going to cover it in just a darker, like a dark grey. I'm going to do like a nice heavy overbrush. And then I'm going to go all the way through to like a cream. So this is, I say, quite a lot of paint on my brush here. So just overbrushing just to really let the dark grey paint cover up most of the black. And this is where the stonework and everything sort of comes to life really nicely. So there you go. It's the first coat there. Making sure I catch all the tiles. Now this is where you can create some really nice shadows by leaving some of it dark grey. So when you actually lean down, it's like create some nice dark patches in some of the little corners and stuff. And I do that purposely in some of the areas. And it's quite nice where some of the black also blends with the grey, so it makes it a bit darker in places. And that's for the first coat. And you can see it's a bit like mottled effect from the black. Now I'm going to use a mid grey, and now this is where I do dry brushing, so it's very similar to the dark grey, but it's just slightly lighter. And so I'm just going to go straight over to start picking out some of the details. And you can already see where some of the details starting to come out. Now I'm going to come in with the light grey, and this is where you really want to sort of get that paint off your brush, start picking up some of the details. This is what will bring the shingles really sort of to life. It looks really good when you do this, and all the little pillars are from the windows. And that's what it looks like. And basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry brush the timber. I'm just going to do a basic thing. So it's going to be just 2 Citadel paints. I'm just going to go over with the lighter, the sort of like the lighter grey first, and then I've picked it out with like the more brighter grey. I've done the ladder as well. It looks quite orange on the video, but actually it's a really nice colour scheme. And actually I've not done that before, so I'm going to probably use that same technique going forward. So now I'm going to cover the whole piece in a brown ink. So it's like a sepia ink mixed with medium and water. It's going to make it look really brown on the stonework, but then I'm going to come back in with the light grey, so you can see it looks very brown, but the actual highlight of the light grey will bring some of them highlights back out. So don't worry when you do this that you've ruined it, because you really haven't. So now I've got a nice big brush, and I'm going to come back in with that light grey, and now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in like a swirl, so you can see I've created some streaks there, but I'm going to do it in like a circular motion, and that'll get rid of those. Make sure you do it in like a circular motion so you don't get any like brush stroke marks on the piece. But it's really nice because it leaves all the brown in all the recesses, and it allows you to sort of like bring the areas that you want to bring back up and leave like the murky brown in different places. So there you go, that's it finished there, and you can see the actual brown timber looks really nice against the grey, and it does look really dirty, and that's the sort of look that I wanted. So now I'm going to start doing the base ready. So I'm using some Geek Gaming mid and dark green, sort of, they're called foam flocks, and then Jarvis I'm going to use a dark green, and I'm going to use a Battlefield ready, and that's got some nice texture in it and some nice different colors in it. So if any of you have seen any of my other videos, I'm literally going to cover all of it in PVA, and I'm just going to create some of the looks. So I'm going to do some on the platform, and then I'm going to use some bushes as well, which are the thicker flocks. So I'm just going to cover all of it in PVA. And I'm going to start with the dark, I'm going to start with a forest path from Geek Gaming, and then I'm going to use the dark green, sorry, the mid green, and I'm going to come in with a dark green afterwards. I'm going to do it all the way around, and I'm also going to put some on the flagstones as well, so like grass has grown up through the flagstones. I'm going to put the forest path again, coming out the front door into the cloister, and then I'm going to carry the green flocks. Now I'm going to add some PVA here, because I'm actually going to add a little bit of green flock, sort of like looking like weeds are growing up through the roof. But I'm also going to add some of these autumn leaves. Such a lovely effect. It's like the leaves have sort of fallen, they've caught on the roof, and that's where they've stayed. And I'm going to add some of them also onto the cloister itself in the gap where the roof's collapsed, and I'm going to add some onto the second floor, so it's just all nicely uniformed. And I've got some of this battle zone scatter
and that's really nice because it's got like stones and little bits of static grass. Just adds a really nice little sort of bit of interest and some nice texture to it. And there you go, that's all the leaves. Now we're going to basically seal it all in. So this is isopropanol, and I've got basically PVA and matte varnish mixed with water. So you spray it with the isopropanol, and then you use a syringe to put on the matte varnish, and that's the piece finished. So added some grass turfs just to sort of finish it off. And as you can see, the leaves and everything look really good on the piece. I'm using some Lord of the Rings miniatures, and you can see there's the ladder where so the miniatures sort of can slot them in to climb up the ladder, and again just create some nice interest. And the timber looks really good, even though it's a bit thinner. It's really good.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. I absolutely loved building this. I really enjoyed the nice bits of architecture, the few details, even like things like making like small ladders, making them playable. Everything I really enjoyed. I say I made this in a couple of days, so it's, if you've got a whole weekend apart from the drying time, you know, you can build this again in a weekend. So I hope you like the techniques. Like I said before, if you do want to support the channel, hit the bell, subscribe, buy some of my products, follow the links below if you can. Otherwise, just keep coming back, keep watching the videos. I've got another video coming out soon, which is going to be another elevation video, a little bit different. So I think it's going to be sort of hillsides and trees. And then I've got I've got a tree video, individual tree video coming the week after. So thanks again for coming back. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And until the next time, I look forward to seeing you.